This is DJ and PK, Utah's highest rated sports radio morning show for over 20 years. Ridiculously good. Presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 16 years in a row on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, remember, every Wednesday you can win tickets right here on The Zone. Sometimes you can win them on Tuesdays and Thursdays too, but Wednesdays for sure. Next week we're giving away Pitbull tickets. Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater, September 25th. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday. Win ticket Wednesdays right here on The Zone. DJ, PK, and we are joined now by David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. David, good morning.
Good morning, David James. Hi, Patrick Kinahan. How are you? Gosh, I've missed you. I didn't get to talk to you for a whole week. My life was empty. What was I supposed to do?
I don't know.
That was sad.
It worked out. You had family obligations, and you had to go watch your kid in the Big Ten Golf Championships, and we know you're looking forward to that. And then during this 2 weeks we didn't talk to you, I don't know if you heard, but a hockey team moved to Utah and created a little bit of a sensation.
It seems as though we're reacting fairly well to having another professional sports team in town. It certainly is exciting.
A full embrace. Do you, as the voice of the Jazz?
By the way, would you have expected anything else in this town?
No.
I mean, like, you and I have done, and PK, we have done sports in this town for 30 years, both because the city's good, but because the fan base is awesome. And so if we were in if we were in Phoenix, you wouldn't want to do sports talk for 30 years.
It would be a different beast in the Sun Belt market.
Actually, it depends on what I was getting paid.
Nice. I love you.
He's consistent.
I really do. I really do. I really, truly, when it gets right down to it, one of my all-time favorites. I mean, I love DJ for lots of reasons. PK, I love you for your uniqueness.
You can call it that.
I can't.
And your full transparency.
I can't quite figure out how they're going to modify the arena and accommodate more hockey fans with unobstructed views, but maintain the almost perfect basketball sightlines and all that. Do you have any idea what they're going to do to the arena, how this is going to work, what wall they're going to move, what concrete they're going to blow out? Something's going to happen. I can't figure it out. Can you?
Did we just talk about the fact that we've done sports talk radio for 30 years, or did we just become structural engineers? What the heck? Seriously. I really think that the post on the third quadrant of the left side's holding this amount of the structure. So if we're able to move that, I'm just not sure what to tell.
I think that people are emotionally attached to that building. If you change it, sports fans care if they're going to move one whole wall of the arena.
And I think people seem to be emotionally attached to a brand new hockey team too. So, I don't know. If the
I don't know if it's an acceptable answer. You haven't heard.
If the basketball experience is, let's be just really honest about it. If the basketball experience is a minor bit less good, so that we can have NHL and more people can experience a different thing, then it's probably worth it, right? I don't know. I'm sure they're going to do the best they can. Jim Olsen has been spearheading this. He's really, really good at his job, but I'm not. I didn't even stay at a Express last night. Geez Louise, what are you asking me?
You talked to a lot of people in the organization. Do you know what you're going to do? And obviously the answer is no one has told you that. So we'll move on.
Yeah, or I haven't been smart enough to ask, because if they told me, I wouldn't understand it anyway.
You would understand if they were going to move one wall of the arena.
PK.
What?
How do you feel about the load that comes in on the third pillar of the right side?
You are in full PK mode this morning. That wasn't the question, and you know it. So tell me about the NBA.
Do I think that they can really 110% keep a perfect basketball environment while adding a hockey rink? I'll be surprised because the 110% perfect basketball arena that we've had can't see ice. So by definition, it might be a little different. Different is not always bad. They're pretty good at what they do.
So now that you've watched the playoffs, do you still think it's Denver and Boston?
Oh, my gosh, was Denver so good last night. I mean, so good. I was texting everyone last night. Like, every single person who I watch basketball with or I talk to basketball about got a text from me last night at like 11 o'clock at night. I just was blown away last night. It was so gorgeous. They just, if you like, and I guess, maybe you got to be a junkie, but their offensive possessions are so calm and so organized. And if the first thing doesn't work, then eventually it's running into a Jokic handoff, at which point you're penetrating the middle of the floor, at which point the defense will collapse, at which point you will kick out to a shooter, which if that somehow is covered beautifully, then you're going to pop it back to Jokic for another one. And they just are so calm, and they're just unguardable last night. I mean, and Aaron Gordon's perfectly mixing the sliding the baseline, and Jamal Murray is obviously terrific, and Michael Porter Jr. can't miss. They're just, and frankly, someone texted me last night and said Jamal Murray's the most underrated player in the NBA, and I texted back like Nikola Jokic is the most underrated player in the NBA, and he's about to win his third MVP in 4 years. We may still not know what we're really watching with him. Like, they are so good right now. The Lakers are good. Like, they're not great, but they're good. And they didn't look like they deserved to be on the floor with him last night. I thought that was mind-blowingly awesome. And just the connectivity, the calmness, the plan, awesome. Really awesome. And if Mike Malone doesn't tear an Achilles tendon while trying to play defense as the head coach on the sideline during the playoffs, I'll be pleased for Michael Malone. Because he's going crazy over there.
I wanted to talk to you about what the post-season press availability was about, particularly with Mr. Ainge, the guy who probably is going to call the shots and have the biggest say if Ryan Smith allows it. Well, it looks like that's what is going to happen. And the thing that caught me clearly was the phrase big game hunting. That got me excited. I want to jumpstart the rebuild. I would love to have the team still be playing. I think we all would. And when he says they're going to go big game hunting, that just catches my ear big time. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but what level do you think is involved in terms of big game hunting? Because that, to me, that means shoot for the stars and try to get the best players that you can get beyond the draft. I'm not talking from the draft perspective. I'm talking about who's in the league. Respond to that.
So, sorry, I was going to go somewhere else, and you just turned me at the side to let my brain catch up. So if you want my two specific names, are Trae Young and Karl Anthony Towns.
Right.
Those are the two biggest game names that are going to be available.
Right.
DeJounte Murray would be the third. So those are the biggest names that will be available. Karl Anthony Towns will be available based on a financial problem with a weird ownership situation certainly taking place there, like crazy stuff. And just an incredible story if you really are following it. Glenn Taylor just seems to pry on people that just don't quite have enough money, and then he just somehow makes more out of it. And then, they have a real financial problem if they're going to they've already signed Jay McDaniels, that Towns is probably the one that has to go. And then obviously Atlanta had a disappointing season, and the DeJounte Murray, Trae Young combination doesn't really seem to work. After that, it's hard to go find. Sacramento doesn't feel like they're about to blow it up, but does De'Aaron Fox become available at some point here? I don't know why you would do that. I mean, he's not the problem, but maybe they feel like they have to. Uh-huh. I'm not a huge fan, but does Brandon Ingram become available? Because that might not really work. He's a fine player, but it might not work because he's Brandon Ingram. So I think, it's hard. Like, you need a top 10, a top 20, and a top 50 player in the NBA to be great. I don't think a top 10 is going to be available. I don't really know that I think a top 20 is going to be available. So I don't know how big the game is. I do think that whole answer was really interesting. If I have the right answer, his entire answer there was everything we're going to do is about winning. Every objective we have is about winning. Our prism that we're looking everything through is through winning. But if we get to middle of July and we weren't able to do something, then we'll have to figure it out. And that, I thought, was the theme of the whole entire session, was that we all want this plan. And like DJ, you've asked me multiple times about the plan. And his point is there is no plan. You go with intention, but if it doesn't work out, you've got to have optionality and flexibility to be able to pivot. And there may be a chance that the big game hunting yields you an empty back of your pickup truck, and you're driving back home, and you're going to be playing a young roster that wins 22 games and be back in the lottery with your top 10 pick, and Cooper Flagg is the name we're all talking about next year.
Sweet. If that's the end, I'll take it.
I mean, yeah, right. Yeah, right, because you need that. Like,
Yeah.
If anything, I mean, the whole thing that's so crazy about a rebuild that's so difficult is, like, if you watched last night, like, I didn't watch Cleveland-Orlando because I don't think anyone is. But, like, it was pretty obvious what you have to have last night, right? Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. Like, if you want to win a playoff game, like, that's what you got to have. Like, we can talk about how good Michael Porter Jr. was and how good Aaron Gordon was and how good Jamal Murray were, but they're good because they play with Nikola Jokic. Like, he's that great. And Joel Embiid dropped 50 last night on, like, half a face and half a leg.
Half a face.
He has Bell's palsy. His
Yeah.
right face, right side of his face is not working right now.
I know.
We got that. We just haven't heard the expression half a face
Right.
before.
Exactly. Yes.
That stopped us. All the guys you listed, and okay, so let's assume that the top 10 or 20, the biggest of the big game just isn't available. And these other guys, they make you better, but they've made it really clear they don't want to just, be good or okay. They want to be championship. Now, maybe you still want some of these guys, guy 25, 35, or 45, and it seemed to me they'd really be motivated to go get them if they thought it was the distressed asset, you're a little bargain hunting. So of all the guys you listed, do you think all those guys cost full price and that we should be making out a fair trade? Because lopsided trades happen for money reasons. Is there somebody who's pretty good that they could get at a bargain price because of the spot another organization or owner finds itself in, not wanting to pay some massive, repeating luxury tax bill or something else like that?
So I look at it a little differently than you do. The distressed asset happens when what you just said takes place. They need to move a player, and there's no market, right? So you can have a distressed asset in the sense that you have to make the trade for, but if 5 people want,
then you're going to pay top dollar, right? Because there's a whole supply and demand.
suddenly you've got to move Trae Young, and there's only in San Antonio side, even though we have Victor, we don't really want Trae Young, and suddenly nobody else wants Trae Young, and nobody else wants Karl Anthony Towns. Then you suddenly get the piece of it all. I'll tell you what. Here's my theory on this. I'm not sure. I think I would have if I was in a real basketball conversation with a lot of really smart people who run organizations and stuff, and they push me on this one, I might have a hard time defending this one, and coaches would particularly probably be like, "Are you kidding?" I don't think I would trade for Trae Young or Karl Anthony Towns, but I might trade for both.
Because
So I'm not sure I'm interested in either of them by themselves because they're just mercurial and funky and weird, and I'm not sure I'd love watching them every day. But the fact is they're both 2 of the top 20 offensive players in the NBA, and I think you could get both of them without trading Lowry Markkanen. And if you suddenly opened up the year next year with Trae Young, Lowry Markkanen, and Karl Anthony Towns, you would win 50 games, and you'd have a top 3 or 4 offense in the NBA. And you'd win 124, 120 every night, and it'd be really fun. And I think you'd actually have a chance to be a second-round playoff team, possibly. It's not, everything we've heard about is building a championship. I'm not sure those are championship players, but I do believe if you're a top 5 offensive team in the league, you win. Everyone who's been a top 5 offensive team generally wins 50 games. Indiana, who would be your comp, probably won 47 this year, but Indiana's on the verge of making the second round of playoffs maybe right now, despite a Tyrese Halliburton injury. So, they would have won 50 this year if Tyrese hadn't gotten hurt. So if you're a top 5 offensive team, you win 50 games. And that's good. But I'm not a big championship hunter the way Ryan, Danny, and Justin are right now, honestly. That's not how I view the league. I think it's too hard, and I don't have the guts to do it. They have huge guts to try this.
So that's the prism by which I look through. I think if you get Karl Anthony Towns both, I think you're really interesting. You might just be one of the worst defensive teams in the history of the league. But so is Indiana, and Indiana's really interesting. And Indiana's a similar market, and I actually also would argue that if you're going to build a championship team, that it might be easier to pivot having Karl Anthony Towns, Trae Young, and Lauri Markkanen on your roster than just having prospects. In other words, if that big game became available and you have Minnesota and Cleveland's picks and you put Trae Young or Karl Anthony Towns in that package, maybe you can go get that player because they get something that's good. You know, one of the things that's tricky, let's say Luka Doncic becomes available tomorrow. Okay, it's the dream, right? It's not happening, but let's say. And somebody wants to trade for Luka. After you've given up the world to get Luka, you have to be good enough to win a championship with Luka or he's out. Right? That's the trick here. So I think there's an incremental step you could take in this build where you do something like what I'm talking about. And then if Luka becomes available, you're trading Karl Anthony Towns, Keontae George, draft pick we just get, three other first-round picks, and when you come back, you actually are still pretty good. Or ironically enough, you trade Trae Young for that, and then Trae Young can be traded for Luka Doncic for a second time.
Nice.
I'm making stuff up, but I actually think that incremental step is hard. I also just think it's like I was doing some analysis of Detroit, like I just don't think they've done that many things wrong, and they're in such a tough situation. At the same time, they do have Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. They have some pieces. I mean, other than the fact that Monty Williams just had a brutal year using them, I do kind of wonder, I don't know, it's hard. I start looking at, how are you possibly getting enough pieces to go compete in the West? It's just hard. So, I don't know. That's my theory right now. I think, because I was in a conversation with, some of our really good coaches, Scott Sheldon and Evan Brad and Scott Morrison and Jet and, Chris Jones, they would probably be like, what are you trying to do to me? You're going to make me coach Trae Young and Karl Anthony Towns, and we're supposed to have some semblance of order, and this isn't fantasy basketball. We're not playing status pro anymore. And, how do you possibly, put that? But, numbers-wise, that team's really, really good. If you put it in my system and put it on paper, it's a fabulous basketball team. It wins a lot of games. It might not be in reality.
But there's still a little bit of logic to what you say. It's a little bit like the Collins trade. They didn't give that much up to get him. He is a good player, and so you keep bringing in good players. They're flawed. They're not great players, but you keep bringing in good players, and you're going to have a lot to go get a top 5 or 10 player who becomes available, and you still have to have something on your roster. So you have to look at some of these moves like a hockey assist or like the second hockey assist. It's not the move, but you still have to make the move that sets up the move so you can make the big play.
Yeah, and the other one that just was really obvious this year, and I don't know what you do about this when you're building, but young players, unless they're LeBron or Victor, when they don't have players around them, they're bad. How much better Jalen Green looked in Houston this year by just having, honestly, 2 pretty average NBA starters, and Fred VanVleet's fine, but Dylan Brooks. I mean, those aren't, maybe VanVleet's top 60 player in the NBA, maybe. And Dylan Brooks is probably not top 100, but boy, Jalen Green just looked a lot different.
Yeah.
And Keontae George, when he didn't have Jordan Clarkson or Lauri Markkanen around, that was a hard watch. Not a hard watch, hard, I felt for Keontae. That's what I'm saying, hard watch. I care for the guy, want him to do well, and feel like he's in a really nasty, tough situation to try to have any success at that moment.
Yeah, but Will already said it was good for him to find out this is what it's like to have the scouting report focused on you. To have the rest of the team focused on you, and it's supposed to be in the third or fourth guy, and kind of easing around the edges and not being in the spotlight. So
I agree with Will for maybe a month, but maybe not any more than that. So there is something. I do think there's something. I just do think there's something to. I get the big game hunting concept. I just think there's also the concept of incremental growth that allows you to get to big game hunting another way.
David, we got to run. We appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
I fully expect you to turn Trey Young, the stupid idea of Trey Young and Carl Anthony Towns together into a talk show at some point in time.
Okay, we'll work on it.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
I teed that one up for you. Talk to you soon.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Pablo Mastroeni working on a third straight shutout, maybe? We'll talk to him next. Stay with us.
20 years and still going strong. Utah's #1 sports radio show for over 2 decades. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined now by Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, DJ, PK. How we doing, guys?
Doing well. Okay, here's a little random note that'll make you giggle at some point before you move on with your day. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Totally random. Usually when you are on the phone, you talk to our producer, Jake, before you come on the air. Jake is off this week.
Christian.
Yeah, it's Christian. So given what you know about PK, can you guess PK's nickname for Christian? That's not a lot of info to go on, I know, but when you hear the answer, it's going to crack you up. If you get it, I'll be very impressed.
I can't even guess.
Chicho.
That's free. That's bright. That's smart.
Yeah,
PK. Good. That's a good one.
I thought you liked that. Turns out when a guy starts scoring more goals than Messi, he gets people's attention. But I wonder if you value those 8 goals or the 6 assists, which is tied for Messi with tops in the league. 8 goals are tops in the league. Or you always talk about the leadership, the mentality. It starts with how you train on Tuesday and Wednesday long before you get to a game on Saturday. And Chicho always seems to bring some fire there and set the tone for younger players. So if I made you pick one, knowing full well you got to have an elite goal scorer, and, you know, we've seen what happens in the years. RSL doesn't have that. I know the answer is all of the above, but is there one you value a little more?
I think the way I'd answer that is I think that there's one of those that I'd value at different times of the season given the circumstances of the team, right? So I think when you're going through a really hard time, I think we need his leadership. I think, when we're up a goal and, we need him to get behind the ball and do his work defensively that he does. And then obviously when things are as they are, we need him scoring goals. And so I think, I think that's what makes an MVP player. It's not just, and you're like, what makes Chicho unique is that he does all of it. And typically goal scorers are guys that just kind of poach and they're killers in front of goal, which he is. But, the second goal he scored against Chicago last week came off of a pressing action. And so then you become multidimensional. Like teams are like, when it's Messi, you realize when you don't have the ball, you don't have to, or when you have the ball, he's not going to really press. It's when you turn the ball over that he's a danger. I think even when we're defending as a group, Chicho's a threat. And that's what makes him really unique.
This is going to be a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. As I'm watching this game the other night, I'm thinking, man, you guys are just making it look so easy. It's like you just drew it up, and like your quarterback, they draw up a play, and he's got 5 options, and every option is wide open, and he's got no pressure. The line is blocking. Everything is just happening the way it's supposed to. And I'm wondering, how are you able to do that, and how do you just bottle that to keep it going?
That's a great question. So I think one of the things this year that we, as a front office and technical staff, when the previous staff left, is one of the things we identified is we want to bring in coaches that really are astute in the particular game models. And what that means is basically the way we want the game played. And with that comes the methodology used to teach it. And along with that, there's a tactical periodization, which is explaining the tactics to the team over time. And so it's something that we really, we got 4 great coaches that work extremely well together, that plan great sessions. And I think with every game, we've become more comfortable playing in this way. And so now we've gotten to the point where we can identify spaces that we want to exploit for different teams. And then the onus is on the players to execute, right? Like, I want to be clear with that. The players make the game. And when it looks so easy like that, it's because the chemistry amongst 4 or 5 players in that particular play is at a top level, and momentum's in our way. And so the players have done an excellent job. The coaching staff has done an excellent job. And I think when you have the combination of both of those, it looks like a Chicago game. But it's not easy. It won't happen all the time. But when it does, it looks like the game is happening in a state of flow.
A lot of things that are going right. If I went back to one word, I would say investment. It really comes down to how much owners can impact an organization, and we could pick a sport and pick a team, and we can find good and bad examples. But when I see the things going right now, I'm thinking it wouldn't be going this right if they didn't write the check for Chicho. It costs money to acquire him, and you got to pay him. And over the last decade, there have been a lot of times that RSL just hasn't wanted to do that under 3 different owners, or 4 if you count the league. But right now they want to. And the other thing is that when you change the coaching staff and the game models, they actually added another job. And soccer is a lot like the NFL or college football. Man, there's a lot of people. And so to put that all on one person is hard, and to spread the work out helps. And the thing you told us is, this is going to give you more time to interact with guys. Diego Luna scores that goal and comes over and hugs you. How many coaches get hugged the game that they take the guy out of the starting lineup? That was like the worst news you could deliver. So you must have worked on the relationship with him, because you gave him the bad news he's not in the starting 11.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, DJ. I think one of the things, one of my strengths is really communicating with players, and having played and having been a young player at 19 that goes through hard times, I can empathize with everything that he's going through. And maybe not to the same level that Diego is, because Diego has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders as a young man who just had a baby boy last season. So he's a young kid and raising a family, and he's doing a great job of that. It's so fun to watch his maturation as a young man. But then there's the professional side of the game as well. And so I think for me, and again, the reason why I'm in coaching is to help change the lives of these younger guys. When you ask, what's your why? And that's when I see the guys operating and getting better every day, that puts a smile on my face. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's about results in this business. But my why is really, connecting and communicating and empathizing with these young players and creating an environment for them to thrive in, and like many coaches did for me. And so, with Diego, he's in a good place. I think the communication is really transparent. Sometimes the coach to player communication is very superficial. It's, you're my boss, I'm the player. But for me, it's really trying to get to the root of, how he's feeling. And there's a lot of pressure on him. And he's going to be great. And if Diego Luna is great, we're going to be great, because he's such a fantastic player. But what I've come to learn is that Diego Luna is an amazing young man. And that, for me, is, again, before you can reach the player, you have to be able to reach the person. And I think we have a great relationship. I think we communicate really open and honestly. And in that moment that you talk about, of course, I wasn't anticipating it, but it just kind of put what I just said about my why, it just made it realize in that moment.
Well, that was going to be my exact line of questioning, but I still think there's a question in there as far as your lineups and substitutions. When are those decisions made?
It's really during the week, and you take in a lot of considerations as well. Like at the moment in this part of the season, we've been going weekend to weekend, and I think this is the toughest time to manage a group, because there's not enough games to really go around, because you want to build consistency and chemistry within the team, but at the same time you want to give everyone a chance. But because of the season, it hasn't allowed us to. So that's, I think, the first part. When we talk about how we're going to start at the weekend, is how many games do we have? What does the week look like? And the second part is form, and how the guys are training and how the guys are playing, and what the relationships of the players are on the field. And then you have some players like Andres Gomez, who's a guy that we want to continue to invest in as a young player who we think has world-class potential. Chicho, guys like Fidel and Luna, who are young players that we want to invest in. And so then that's the second idea is we want to be a team that develops younger players, so we have to have younger players on the field. And then it becomes form and how they're playing in the relationships. And so it's not easy, but like DJ, you pointed out earlier, is like I have time now to really speak clearly to the guys that aren't playing, and more importantly, not to speak to them, but to listen to them, because oftentimes coaches talk to players, and players don't feel the psychological safety to respond in the way that they feel inside, and sometimes you just got to get it off their chest. Like, listen, I'm disappointed with the decision, Pablo, and I said I understand that. I totally understand that, and what I keep saying to them is, I have 30 guys to appease. My job isn't to make 30 guys happy. My job is to make 30 guys understand why they're currently in the role they're playing.
And do you literally lock this stuff down on Thursday night or by Friday at noon at the latest? How often do you change the lineup after you finish that light training session on Friday?
Yeah. It's usually solidified by Thursday. However, even going into this week, we have some questionable injury situations that will extend it till Friday, maybe Friday afternoon, and when we see that which particular players can get through the training session. So if there's no injury questions, it's pretty locked up by Thursday morning, and we have a great picture Wednesday after that training session, because we do our 11v11 games, and we do usually 3 games, and we rotate the players in those 11 and form a really good picture of what it looks like tactically and the chemistry within the players. So I would say Thursday morning we have it locked in.
Time and score in any sport, but certainly in soccer, with whether there's 10 minutes, 5 minutes to go, whatever it might be, you pretty well can anticipate the outcome. And I'm wondering, if you have a game like Chicago, does that just settle well with you, and are you relaxed in that time? Because it's clear you're going to win, and guys are hugging and all this stuff, and it's got to be somewhat of a relaxing feeling not to have to be on edge right to the final whistle.
That's a great question, PK, because one of the things that, soccer is one of these weird sports where momentum is crazy, and Man United was in another tournament playing a lower league team about 2 weeks ago, and they were up 3-0. But this team came back and tied it, and then they went into penalty kicks with like 20 minutes left in the game. And so, having watched that game, what it did to me is it brings so much humility to my life about, you think you're on top of the world, like you're having a great day, and then you stub your toe, and then you fall, and then you hurt your knee. Like life, it's really a thing of moments. And so whilst it was more relaxing than most games, if they would have scored that goal that got called back by offside with, 10 minutes left to go, who knows what the next 15 minutes with injury time looks like. And so I'm always humbled by the game, and always thinking, you can never let your foot off the gas in sport and in life. It's you got to put your foot down and keep going and play as if something bad's going to happen. But I think from a sideline view, it is more comforting when you have a 3-0 lead.
Things go right and things go wrong, and you say that's life, that's the universe. But you're 9 games into the season, and you've lost 4 center backs to injury. And so you play 4 outside backs, and you play Oviedo. I mean, he's really kind of seemed buried in the rotation. All of a sudden, he's got to be the guy. How do you what do you do, and how do you do it? And what does he do, and how does he do it, that he's ready for that moment when he hasn't gotten to play, and he's playing out of position, and he's undersized, and he's inexperienced in that role, although he's a veteran player? How does that work? And was it a big factor maybe that Chicago was missing one key guy and had a second key guy limp off at 30 minutes in?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, again, I think it's the culture piece, and given that I have more time to really delve into that, it's something that we hit on every day, whether it's a video session, whether it's a training session. It's the way we train. Whether it's the running after games for guys that didn't play a lot of minutes, right? All the players hate running after games because, again, it's the ego piece, right? You don't want to be seen running after games when the rest of the guys are in the locker room celebrating. But everything is done in context of being a championship team. We want to be a championship team, so we have to do things that other teams aren't willing to do. And again, I think, Bodie Hidalgo and Brian Oviedo playing center back is a testament to them and their mindset of willing to, do the nitty gritty when things aren't going well and they're not getting a lot of playing time. And it's just, again, I think it starts like everything else. If the coaching staff is very confident in their ability to play that position, in other words, not over coaching it, not, like spending a lot of times bringing doubt into their minds about their ability to play that position, I think they start feeling the same way. And the analogy I'd use is like, when a kid falls on the ground in the playground and the parent has this look in his eyes or her eyes of fear. Well, the kid looks up to mom and dad when the kid falls, and all of a sudden the kid has fear. But if the parent is, hey, don't worry, get up, scratch it off, you're fine, the kid then reacts in the same way that the parent. So a lot of times you get your cues from the people in leadership positions, and I think we've done a good job as a staff to really provide the type of mentality that we believe in you, regardless if you've played this position, regardless if you've played a lot of minutes. And then again, I want to give credit to the sports and conditioning staff, Sean Buckley and Johnny, who do a great job with our guys physically. And I think one of the things that have really been noticeable this year has been our how robust we look at the weekend, how fit we are. And so when you put all that together, I think you create a great culture and a great environment for guys that haven't played a lot of minutes in different positions to go out and do what they did.
I love the parenting advice, but where were you 15, 20 years ago?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
If only I had known then what I know now.
That's funny.
All right, Pablo, we will let you go. We appreciate the time and the knowledge. Thanks for joining us, and good luck in Philly. I didn't mention you trying to put any streak together. I know how superstitious soccer people get. Even if you roll with it, somebody else will come on it. What'd you bring that up for? So I'll let it go until you're gone. I know you know what I'm talking about. Good luck.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you.
All right. It was Pablo Mastroeni working on the third straight shutout, giving up the fewest number of goals in Major League Soccer, 8 goals in 9 games. Best in the West, tied with Cincinnati in the league. Another shutout in Philly, perhaps. We'll find out Saturday night. You'll hear the game right here on The Zone. Pre-game at 4:30, and the game will get underway at 5:30. DJ and PK coming up. Scotty G. Oh, man, he's upset, PK. He is upset. He will join us at 9:30. Why is he upset? Well, we'll explain that.
I know why. That's why I did it.
I know you know. He did it on purpose. We'll get to that next. And he does address an interesting question. That's next. Stay with us.
But before we go, I got to tell you about the Hercules Hero of the Week. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contests, and then listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, and it's sponsored by Hercules Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
This is DJ and PK, Utah's highest rated sports radio morning show for over 20 years. Ridiculously good. Presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 16 years in a row on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Say you will, say you won't, make up your mind tonight. Say you do, say you don't, wanna be mine. Say you will, say
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Question of the morning. Quarterback McKay Hillstead is transferring from Utah State to BYU. The Aggies play-by-play radio announcer predicts Hillstead will be BYU starter before the 24 season ends. Is this possible? Well, first off, the Aggies play-by-play radio announcer has commented on both Facebook and Twitter, because usually, for people who follow us on social media, you know this, but PK's putting up questions either in the late afternoon or early evening, whatever. It's just stuff happens in the world of sports throughout the day, and games happen at night. You'll post 1, 2, 3 things that we know the audience is paying attention to and wants to weigh in on. And then I usually copy and paste them into Twitter in the morning. And so people are just getting up, get on board, and they can comment there. So in both places, Scotty G, the radio announcer does have a name. He put it on Facebook this morning, and a couple hours later I see him on Twitter. The radio announcer does have a name.
I actually feel a little guilty in drawing him into that, but I knew I would.
Not guilty enough not to do it, but you do feel bad.
Yeah. He took the bait.
Guilt is there to help us change our behaviors. So you acknowledge the guilt, and then you don't change your behavior.
Guilt might be there to help you change the behavior, but not necessarily.
Clearly. Just go on.
Right.
I feel bad about that. Now I'll throw another rock at that kid's ankle. Some 7-year-old at the bus stop starting
but it might be the right thing to do, even if there's a little guilt involved.
Starting a rock fight at the bus stop.
You might have to end the friendship or something. You have a little guilt about it, but it's still the right thing to do. That happens. But I knew he would take the bait, which is why I thought, should I do it? Should I just torch him a little bit? Yeah, why not?
Classic.
Just to see if he would do it. I think in order to entertain other people, you first have to entertain yourself. And then ooh, that's good. I got to go with that. Like the other day, I was speaking before a crowd of people, and I asked them, I said, do we have any Cougars in here? And a few ladies raised their hand. And then I said, do we have any BYU fans in here?
It got a huge laugh. It got a laugh. And you were actually a little, I guess that's the reason to ignore the guilt, because you were wrong about the guilt. You were worried
I felt
people.
a little guilty.
You did,
but I had to do it.
I was there, and I was talking to you at the table, and we had to go up and speak, and I'm like, and I had to start, and I was like, should I set you up, or are you just going to wing it? He goes, I'm just winging it. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then later I looked at you, and I could see you thinking, I'm like, do you have something? He goes, yeah, I do. Do I need to set you up? No, I guess, I don't know. It's a little, I think it'll be okay, though. Well, that's hard to believe that people right now can't believe, knowing what the joke was, that you would have any reticence that it might make people feel bad and you weren't there to do it. You're just trying to make them laugh. Would it be in the spirit it was intended?
But they didn't know me.
It was a mix of people who did know you and who didn't. You're right. It was and the people who they don't know you personally, but they know you on TV. Or radio.
I had to. I felt a little guilty in bringing them in, but it was to my benefit, and I did it. It's the same thing here.
When you did that thing at the Rose Bowl, you texted me and told me the people, and again, they know you from the media, and they're just staring at you after this noon live shot.
Oh.
That text was so beautiful because it was the full array of, there's people there who've known you for 15, 20 years. They knew exactly what you were going to do when you went on. And the other people kind of knew you had an idea, and the other people were just startled.
You mean when I went off?
You went off on a noon show before the Rose Bowl.
Yes, on Channel 5 with JJ and Sam, and they, I just thought, this is my time, man.
This is my time.
Back away. JJ's giving me a look. We got to go. We ain't going anywhere.
There's somebody in his ear wrapping him up, some producer. Shorten the cooking segment. PK's going long.
I had to go. It was in me. I had to get it out.
Well, a local team at the Rose Bowl. It was quite the magical moment.
For sure.
All right, quarterback McKay Hillstead is transferring Utah State to BYU. The Aggies play-by-play radio announcer predicts Hillstead will be BYU starter before the 24 season ends. Is this possible? Yes, I absolutely believe that. Under what circumstances? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.